Okay, says I'm live. I don't expect this to be a very long one, really. And I also don't expect there to be very many people in the watch, and that's fine. But I promised to show the glue up of this fish box. So that's what we're going to do this time. I'm basically going to uh, glue the inside of the box to the base. I've already done all of the hand sanding I'm going to do on this, and I have already glued and sanded the lid to the outside of the box. So let me zoom in so you can see a little bit better what we're doing and what I've done. All right, pay attention, remote. Yeah, that was a bit much. Well, that'll do. So I took quite a bit of time and hand sanded this fish after I got it cut out. So what I did was I used sandpaper and a bunch of small files. Of different sizes and shapes. Uh, some people call them modeling files. Some people call them, I don't know what some people call them, but this is just a bunch of small files that let me get into all the crooks and nannies of these. And I cleaned up all the fuzzies front and back, and I sanded the front nice and smooth. I was initially, because the grain in that Pecky cypress was relatively plain, I had intended on before I glued this to the top, I had intended on using my airbrush and 3 different colors of dye and spraying this a couple of shades of green and a yellowish on the bottom. Oh yeah, that's right. Rifflers. Sorry. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, Riffler files, hobby files, model files. There's all kinds of names for these little files, but man, they come in handy. And they work great. Just don't get the cheap ones. So anyway, I was going to dye this, but the grain would still the grain would still show through the dye well enough, except for the darkest of the dyes, I think. But I just didn't. I don't know that I want to cover this up. It's just too pretty the way it is. So instead of doing that, what I am going to do is I'm just going to glue this to the lid. One of the things that I've already done, like I said, I glued this up. As soon as I finished cutting these out, I went and sanded the edges of the top and the base, and I sanded the edges of this, and then I glued this to this and let it sit for an hour. I glued the lid to the outside of the box, and I let it sit for an hour under clamps, and then I sanded it again to make it match, and then I sanded it again to smooth it off with 120, and the top has been sanded as well, and I rounded over the edges. Now it's important, at least to me, and I didn't round them over much, but you want to break those sharp edges. Right now this is sharp, and if it gets snagged or on something, it could splinter because juniper's pretty brittle. So I didn't want that to happen. So to keep that from happening, I round the edges over, and it'll keep you from hurting yourself if you drop it on if it's full of something or whatever. and it's less likely to take damage if you do drop it or something. So this is glued on. I'm going to use the same process that I did for this to glue this on, except I'm not going to do it this way because I can't see where I've got everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same process for applying the glue that I did here on the lid. So you'll see what I did and how I did it. What I'll do, this is going to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to try to center this by eye. Once I get the glue applied to the bottom side, I'm going to try to center this by eye as close as I can before I put the weights on it. And yeah, that's how I clamp it, with weights. So I'm going to try that and we'll see what happens. I've got glue on my surface I need to get rid of so I don't get a bow. This is an old, this piece of Formica is actually on an old, it's a piece of plywood. It was a cabinet in my house in Ohio that I remodeled. And when I tore the cabinets apart, I kept all this Formica covered plywood because it's old. The house was built in the 60s and it's stable. It's not going anywhere. And this Formica, you can, if your glue gets on it, you can scrape it off easy enough and it doesn't stick real bad. So I use it as a building surface very often. So let's apply the glue. And it's a real difficult and trying process to do this. I could run this all the way around with the bottle, but then I'd have to wipe a lot off and there'd be a lot of squeeze out. So I found it easier just to put a little bit on my finger and work it around. It won't take very long, so I'm not worried about the open time. And if anybody's out there making comments, I'm sorry. I don't have anybody in my ear, but that's all right too. Now, any squeeze out that I get in the bottom, I'm not going to worry about too much on the inside because I'm going to flock this with, I ordered flocking already. The flocking tube came in today. No, yesterday. The flocking tube came in last night. That's the tube that you put the flocking in, and you'll see that because I'll show you how to, when I go to flock this, I'll show you how it works. But unfortunately, the flocking material won't be in for a while, sometime next week. So we're going to have to wait a few days for that. And any squeeze out I get on the inside, the flocking will cover. That's where I was going with that. You get a little much on your finger that time, Haas? You want to use plenty of glue, but you don't want to use too much. Too much will give you too much squeeze out. Too little, depending on the kind of clamps or clamping pressure that you're using, will give you not just too much squeeze out, but it will, you'll end up with starved glue joint, and you don't want that either. Because then it won't stuck. Or at least it won't stick well in all the places. And as far as the glue, any squeeze out on the outside, I will deal with that before it completely dries. Okay, now then, I've got the glue on it. So flip it over. Put it down. And as best as I can, I'm going to center this. Now, it would be really nice if I could put this on here and clamp it, but I don't want to do that because if I was to, because then I'd know this was in the right spot. If I just set this over and maneuvered it around and then put the weights on it, uh, it would work, except any squeeze out that happened from doing that would get on the inside of this lip and it would stick the lid down, and then I'd be in trouble because I'd never get it off. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna push down on this a little bit with my hands for a few minutes, give it a 15-second tack. Make sure I'm still aligned, mostly. I'm going to set this down just quickly to see if it's about right, and it is. So we're good there. Yep, and see, I got a little glue on the inside of this already. So that's where I want it and how I want it. So look, weights. What do you do for, how you going to clamp that, Bill? Well, it's easy. I've got these old grinding wheels that came off my dad's old 6-inch grinder. They're heavy enough that they put some downforce on this. I'm going to slide this out of the way a little bit, and I'm going to get one more thing, just because I want to make sure it sticks good. This is actually the barrel of the motor of the outside of the grinder. This was froze up and the bearings were bad, so I tore it apart, and it makes a great weight, a clamping weight. So I'm going to set that on top of the grinding wheels. Now that'll dry after I'll give it about 30 minutes, and then I will come back and I'll take the weights off and I'll clean up any of the squeeze out, and then I'll put it back under pressure to hold it on. So now, since I decided I'm not going to dye this, and the edges, it's all been sanded and the edges have been rounded, I'm now going to glue the little fishy to the lid. Now this is going to be tricky. I don't want any squeeze out on this at all if I can help it. So getting the glue in the right spots. On the bigger spots, it's easy. On the smaller spots, not so much. I may not, in fact, I may not put any glue at all on all of the small spots, because I don't want any squeeze out on this if I can help it. I think I saw Jerry come in. I'm about 10 feet, about 8 feet from there's Robin, there's Steve C. Mr. Nealon, how are you? Okay, I can barely read. I can't read your comments, but I can see who's there. So thanks for coming along, folkses. If you get this in enough places, it's not going to go anywhere. So that's what I'm trying to do. Just get it in enough places. And I can't see the camera. I mean, obviously, I can't see your comments. So, but I do appreciate each and every one of you for being here. I really do. It means a lot. Okay, that should be enough. Turn it over. Set it down. Get it centered. Well, you've got your weights tied up, Bill. Now what are you going to do? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around. I do have a little bit of squeeze out I want to take care of. That will affect the finish if you don't get it off. Quit moving it around, stupid. Dummkopf. Okay, I've got tack down good. It doesn't want to move when I try to slide it, so that tells me that. Oh, there you went and slided it again. I said I didn't want to slide, and it slid. Reminds me of the old Dizzy Dean comment. He'd have been out at second, but he slid. Okay, hold that down. And you get my high dollar clamp ready. Yep. Couple of paint cans. Worked fine, lasts a long time. So with that, it's glued together, and like I said, I will let this sit here for about a half hour, and then I'll come back and I'll clean up the squeeze out so that it'll just peel right off pretty easy. This one I've pretty much already taken care of the squeeze out. It's going to be just fine. I'll leave this under weight for about an hour is all I really need to do, and then I can take it off. Okay. Read whose messages, Jerry? Mine or Robin? Why is it a good thing I can't read your comments? Let me carry my remote with me so y'all can see where I'm going. Oop. I'm not too far now. Oh, hello, Charles. I didn't see you come in. Oh, I didn't know you were live, Jerry. Sorry, dude. Everybody's saying hello. Jerry's live on his other channel. Apparently, I'm not subscribed to that channel. I didn't know and I didn't get a thing. Sorry. Oh, he does what? Okay. So, anyway, I didn't. This is just a quickie, quick 20 minutes. I appreciate you all for coming and checking it out. I'll do one more live when I flock the inside, and then the after I put the finish and whatnot on the outside, then the final pictures will be posted on my Instagram and Facebook page. So you'll get a chance to see it there. So thanks again. I appreciate it, all of you. Come back and see us. And if you think you know people that might enjoy some of the goofiness or whatever scrolling that I'm regular woodworking, anything I want to come up with goes on this channel. So if you think you know somebody that might enjoy it, share it. And as always, live, laugh, and love. And y'all come back.